Hello to everyone. I am Dr.S.RAJESWARI, Associate Professor of Economics, A.D.M.COLLEGE for Women. Today we will going to see labor economics. Before we will going to see the labor economics, what are the concepts of labor economics? Introduction. Labor, what is meant by labor, who is employer and who is employee, and what is meant by labor economics. See, labor, it is nothing but the amount of physical and mental effort used to produce goods and services in the economy. See, who is an employer? See, individual owns or manages the business and types of small business and corporation. Next, who is an employee? Employee is an individual hired by the employer to perform the specific task and contribute to the company's operations. Next, what is meant by labor economics? See, labor economics is the field of study that explores how the labor force interacts with the various production process. See, these are all the employer, employee and labor economics. See, what are the types of employment? Okay, first, employer. What are the types of labor? First one, skilled labor, semi-skilled labor, unskilled labor and professional employer. See, we will discuss one by one. First, what is meant by skilled labor? See, skilled labor, it is nothing but it requires the high level of training or education. Example, nurse, sales representatives, electrician, engineers and architects. See, this type of labor is skilled labor. Next, semi-skilled labor. See, semi-skilled labor, it is nothing but between the skilled and unskilled labors. Example, carpenter's assistant, machine operator. These are all called semi-skilled labor. See, before the skilled labor, it is requires what? Higher level of training or education. Next, unskilled labor. See, who is unskilled labor? See, the unskilled labor does not require no formal education. Example, farm worker, that is agricultural laborers or workers, and laundry workers. See, next one, that is professional. See, professional labor, that means professional requires the highest level of education and training. See, what are the example of this professional means, that is doctors, teachers, lawyers and scientists. These are all the professionals. Next, see, labor economics, it is nothing but it is the study of workings and outcomes of the market for labor. That is called labor economics. It is mainly concerned with the behavior of employers and employees in response to that is related to wages, prices, profits and working conditions. See, the labor economics, it also includes the study of the relationship between wages and employment opportunities. See, next, it also the interaction among the wages, income and decision to work. Next one, the way of wages and the prices and profits affects occupational choices. Next one, it is a study of or it relates to incentives for the effects and the educational and training investment. Next one, the effect of unions on wages, productivity and turnover. Next, the effect of social policies. See, social policies, it includes minimum wages, labor legislation and safety and health regulation on wage and employment. In the above images, you can easily identify who is an employer and employee. Who is an employee? You can easily understand from the above picture. Next, what is labor and laborer? See, they also called employer and employee. Usually, the term labor is used for worker. Labor is used for worker. But technically it is not correct. Labor and laborer, worker are two different things. Labor is the an ability to work. It is a broad concept because it includes both physical and mental labor. See, it refers that is in the above diagram. Labor is a primary or human factor of production. It indicates human resources. That is human resources. It is one of the important human factor of production. See, laborer is a person who owns business. So, that is called laborer. So, laborer means worker. It is a person engaged in some work. It is called laborer. Next, characteristics of labor. We will discuss one by one. First one, labor is inseparable from laborer. Labor is inseparable from laborer. That means labor cannot be separated from laborer. Okay, both are interconnected. So, worker sells their services and does not sell themselves. Sells their services but does not sell themselves. That is called labor. And labor is a perishable factor. What does mean by perishable factor? See, labor cannot be stored. Okay, so labor cannot be stored. Once the labor is lost, it cannot be made up, and unemployed workers cannot store their labor for future employment. That is the second point. Third one, third characteristics. Cost of producing a labor cannot be determined. It cannot be predetermined factor. It is easy to calculate production cost of the commodity produced in an industry, but cost of producing labor is vague, not clear. It's not clear concept because it includes expenses incurred by parents. See, parents spend their income to the education. So, parents on education of their own children and other expenses incurred on them right from their birth date. So, it is so the labor cost of producing labor cannot be determined. So, it is impossible to estimate all such costs accurately. It cannot be determined accurately. Fourth characteristic, labor is an active factor of production. So, other factors like land and then capital are passive, but labor is an active factor of production. Being a human being, this factor has its own feelings, likes and dislikes, thinking power, etc. So, we can achieve better quality and level of production if land and capital are employed properly in close association with labor. So, without labor, we cannot imagine the smooth conduct of production. So, labor is the one of the important factor of production. So that it is called active factor of production. Next, labor is a heterogeneous factor. That is means what? Different characters. So, no two person possess the same quality of labor. Labor is differ from one person to another person. So, the skills, efficiency differ from one to another. So, some workers are more efficient and some others than other persons in the same job. Okay. Next characteristic, labor has imperfect mobility. That means what? Labor does not move easily from one occupation to another occupation because of several factors. What are the factors? Like family circumstances and the cultural background, limited educational and technical skills, lifestyle, housing, transport problems, language barrier, adaptability to new environment, etc. These are also the labor has imperfect mobility and does not easily move from one occupation to another occupation. Next characteristic, labor supply is inelastic. That means the supply of labor depends upon many factors like that is size of population, age, sex composition, desire to work, quality of education, attitude towards work, etc. So the supply cannot be changed easily according to changes in demand. Okay. So hence in general the labor supply is inelastic. So that we can tell labor supply is inelastic. But in a particular industry, it may be relatively elastic. Some concept it may be relatively elastic. Another one, labor is a human capital. That means that is human capital. Society makes investment in the labor in form of what forms? What are the forms? In the form of education, health, training, etc. So these characters, it improves the efficiency of labor. So it is a human capital. So we can call human capital. Okay. Next one, trade unionism is one of the factor of labor. So workers collectively or group form their organization which is known as trade union. So they form the union for the labor. So that is called trade union. With this, they bargain with their employees and thereby secure higher wages and demand better working conditions. Such trade unionism is not possible in other factors of production like land, earthworks, only in case of labor or laborer. Next one, labor has a derived demand. That means what? Like other factors of production, labor has derived or indirect demand. So it contributes the production process. Okay, manufacturing, preparing, etc. Okay. Next, labor is the mean as well as an end. That means labor is the mean of production in factory, but outside the factory premises, worker may be a consumer. Within the industry, the labor is the worker. Outside, they may be a consumer that product. So he might be an end user of that commodity. Next, labor market. What do you mean by labor market? See, labor market is the place. Generally, market is the place one who buys and sells the commodity. Labor market is the place where employer and employees interact with each other, or the bargaining with each other, or purchase the commodity each other. So it is called job market, where employers compete to hire the best and compete for the best. To hire the best. And that means the employer hire the best, employees compete for the best satisfying jobs. That is the labor market. Another definition, labor market in economy, the functions with the demand and the supply of labor. It depends upon demand and the supply of labor. When the demand and the supply of labor is the market equal, the labor market be in equilibrium. Demand and supply equal means that means it is called equilibrium. Next definition, it is one of the most important factor of production. Factors of production, land, labor, capital and organization. So labor is one of the important factor of production. The labor services cannot be separated from the laborer. So therefore the condition under which such services are rendered, and also the labor market plays an important role in wage determination. Okay. In India, how it runs, the labor market in India. So Indian labor market is characterized by the predominance of informal employment, that is unorganized worker, as the majority of the labor force work as a casual worker or self-employed. Casual worker or self-employed. That means the employer own business, runs the own business, that is self-employed. In informal market, more than 80% of India's workforce work as casual and self-employed. So that the agriculture sector, it is one of the major employment providers which employs more than 40% of the labor force and contributes 17 to 18% of GVA, that is gross value added of the economy. Nature and scope of labor economics. See, first one, human resources. Human resources, it is one of the important factors. So like all other resources, Human resources is also scarce. That means the resources should be optimally utilized. That means fully utilized. Unlike other fields of economics like agricultural economics and industrial economics, where labor is viewed only as agricultural and industrial labor. In generally, the labor economics, labor is considered to be a human resources, and this labor economics seeks for the optimal utilization of human resources. That is fullest utilization of human resources. Next, what are the problems of labor? See, labor problems, it is a big one. Labor economics identify, classify and analyze the problems. See, it relates to or it gives appropriate solution to these labor problems. The labor problems being bring obstacles in the smooth working of an organization. So the elimination of these problems, these obstacles is necessary from the point of view of efficient utilization of human resources. Next, utilization, application and conservation of human resources. Being a source of production, labor is inseparable from production, since labor is also scarce like other factors of production. Therefore, it should be optimized or efficiently used. Before putting the labor to work, it has to be seen that whether we are making the best use of his means labor capacities and talents or not. Example, if a worker available to work, he can either be an agricultural field or in the firm, but if he is skilled enough to work in the firm, his service should be utilized there also because the labor is available, it cannot be exploited. So, labor is a scarce factor, therefore, it should be used in the best possible manner. Next, efficient and effective utilization. See, what is efficient and effective utilization? See, efficient and effective utilization of human resource has always been an important objective of the policy makers of developing nations like India. So, whereas the efficient utilization is related to selecting the best option of utilization, effective utilization has a reference to the productivity. So, that situation of disguised employment where the worker is actually does not make any contribution to the output and contract the concept of effective utilization. Then labor market, it is a task of allocation of resources. Allocation of resources, it is assigned to the market forces. So, under labor economics, we can study the nature, efficiency, mode of functioning and imperfections in labor market for the efficient and best utilization of labor. Human welfare. What is human welfare? Human welfare is a facet taken under the purview of labor economics. It is a human aspect in combination with the technological development that can make the economies grow and progress at a faster pace. Healthy, active, talented and skilled manpower is always an asset of the country. And what are the characteristics of labor market in developing economies? See, recognition of labor as the factor of production, and it is tradability necessitates the notion of labor market. The orthodox approach perceives labor market as one amenable to be operated under supply and demand mechanism. So, the labor market is a place where workers and employers are brought into contract and wages and working conditions are decided in the labor market. Therefore, it is a mechanism by which labor power is combined to production process. Labor market is also quite different from other markets for its unique feature of factor traded in the market. So, however, the modern labor economics is indeed a refinement to traditional competitive model by taking into consideration of the existence of imperfections rigidities and cost associated with labor mobility, trade union organizations, uncertainties and imperfect formations, etc. Next, what are the features of labor market? So, one of the important features of labor market is agricultural laborers live on the margin of existence. So, agricultural labor force is continuously increasing with the increase in the size of labor force in India, whereas the percentage contribution of agriculture to GDP, gross domestic product, has been declined drastically over the period. And the next one, low wage rate in agricultural labor market. So, compared to other, particularly in the agricultural labor market is very low wages. So, the agricultural wage in rural labor market is very low, and there is seen very little increase in agricultural real wages over the period. Gender discrimination and the child labor. The wage for female laborers in rural areas across all over country is less than the male laborers. According to Rural Labor Enquiry Report on wage and the earnings of rural labor households in the year of 1999 to 2000, the male labor force is paid out 30% more than female labor force. Moreover, the incidence of child labor is high in rural area compared to the city side. The rural labor market and most exploited segment in the Indian labor market. And migratory character of industrial labor. Migratory means move from one place to another place. So, the increase in population is one of the main problems in developing countries. The population pressure on land has increased the supply of labor, in which leads to disguised and open unemployment in the rural economy. See, the disguised and open unemployment is one of the main reasons behind the low wage rate in rural areas. So, the higher wage and opportunities in urban areas attract more number of rural unemployed labor force compared to other areas. So, in the peak of agricultural season, the rural labor force migrates, that is moved from one area to another area, back to their villages and return back to labor market after the season is over. Next, dualism and segmentation in Indian labor market. So, the labor market of developing countries like India has a dualistic character. Next, heterogeneity of workers and jobs. Different one. Homogeneous or same. Heterogeneous means there is different characters. Though in labor is termed as a single factor of production, but two units of labor are not uniform in terms of creativity and productivity. So, the labor units are differed by age, race, gender, education, experience, training, skills and motivation, etc. These factors make labor heterogeneous. So, the labor is different from the other above the characters. Next, imperfect information. So, labor market information pertaining to nature and the quality of the available workforce plays a crucial role in accomplishing the search results. There is lack of perfect information related to wages, working conditions and the labor laws among workers. So, however, from the employer's side, it is difficult to know the reliability and productivity of worker unit until it is turned out. Next, hypothetical equilibrium. That means the models of labor market analysis assumes that there is a perfect information in the labor market. The two concepts, that is buying and selling of labor force, take place in the market equilibrium. So, however, there is existence of imperfect information and in market, due to which buying and selling of labor market takes place even in absence of market equilibrium. Next, labor as a derived demand. What is meant by labor as a derived demand? It is only demanded as an input into production process. In factory market, demand for labor is made by the producers or entrepreneurs. So demand for labor, it is an important concept, or it is also called derived demand. Why? Because demand for labor depends upon the demand for those goods and services which they produce. So that it called labor is the derived demand. So when the economy is expanding, it is expected to see rise in the aggregate demand for labor, providing that the rise in output is greater than the increase in labor productivity. In contrast, which when the economy slows down, the aggregate demand for labor will increase because business looking to cut their operations cost and scale back on production. Next, shift in labor demand. So the number of people employed at each wage rate are liable to change when there is change in conditions of demand in the job market. Some of the reasons for responsible shift in the demand curve for the labor curve also. So change in the demand for a product which results what? That means a business need to take on fewer work. Next, change in the productivity of labor. Next one, a change in the level of national insurance contributions made by employers or other costs of employing, such as such as health, safety legislations and training levels. Next, a change in cost and productivity of machineries and technologies which might be able to produce goods and services or place of the labor input. Next, demand and supply of labor. So labor is demanded to produce goods and services, whereas the firms demand labor because consumers want to purchase a variety of goods and services. The firm's labor demand is derived demand. So derived from the wants and desires of consumers. It depends upon wants and desires of consumers. Many of the general questions in economic policy involve the number of workers that firms employ and the wage that these workers get paid. Next, supply of labor. That means what? The number of laborers doing a particular job who is willingly offer their service at different wage rate and the number of hours or days that each laborer is preferred to work at different rate of wages. So, thus the supply of labor refers to number of days or hours which a particular type of labor is willing to work at different wage rates. Next, what are the factors affecting demand for labor? The wage rate. First character, what? First factors, wage rate. The higher wage rate, it depends upon lower the demand for labor. Hence, the demand for labor curve is slopes downward as in all markets. A downward sloping demand curve can be explained by reference to the income and the substitution effect. At higher wages, the firms look into substitute for capital for labor or cheaper labor for the relatively expensive in labor. So, in addition, if firms carry on using the same quantity of labor, their labor cost will rise and the income will fall. This is the reason. For both reasons, demand for labor will fall as wages rise. Next, demand for the product. The demand for labor is derived demand. That means what? Which means it is ultimately based on demand for the product that labor markets. If the consumers wants more of a particular good or services, the firms will want the workers that make the product. Next, productivity of first demand for the product. Next, productivity of the labor. So, productivity means what? Output of the worker. Output per worker or per labor. And if workers are more productive, they will be in greater demand. So, productivity is influenced to the following. factors. That means the skill level. It depends upon the skill level, education, training, and use of technology. Okay. Next, the profitability of firms. If firms are profitable, they can afford to employ more workers. So, in contrast, falling profitability is likely to reduce the demand for labor. Next, substitutes. See, it means the extent to which labor is indispensable also affects the demand. So, if substitutes such as capital machinery became cheaper or more expensive, so the demand curve for labor will shift to the left to right. For example, the price of the new demand curve for labor will shift to the left to right. For example, the price of a new technology falls, there may be a reduction in demand for labor. The number of buyers and buyers of labor. That means what? The number of buyers in a market, it influences total demand in a given market, constant market. So, a single buyer in a market is called a monopolist. Okay. Next, and these are relatively common in labor market. Single buyer, it is a monopolist. So, it is relatively common in labor market. For example, London Underground is the only firm in the UK to employ underground tube drivers. In general, when a labor market is dominated by one employer and the demand for labor is less than if there are many employees. In addition, if there is a tendency for wage rate to be lower in such market, which is one reason, and why trade union form and exert pressure for higher wages. Next, supply of labor. See, that means what? The supply of labor defined as the number of workers willing and able to work. Willing and able to work. And it is multiplied by hours they are willing and able to work. How it is determined? It determined by the wage rate. So, the higher wage rate, the more labor is supplied, which means the supply of labor will slope upward. A worker's wage along with any bonus, it provides the main monetary benefit from working. What are the factors affecting supply of labor? See the one by one. See, first, length of training of the workers. See, if a worker needs lengthy training, the effective supply of labor is less in the short run. See, what are the barriers? The barriers to entry. See, that means it is particularly in labor market, such as the strict requirement for qualifications will make the supply of labor less than it would be with no barriers. Next, trade unions. See, trade union is an organization. What is the aim of the trade union? To protect the employers or to protect the interest of the workers. Around 30% of the UK employees are members of the unions, with women more likely to be in a union than men. Union membership has fallen steadily over the last 20 years. Next, tax and benefit, incentives and disincentives. See that tax and benefit rates can lead to increase and decrease in the effective labor supply when income taxes are excessive and benefits too generous. A stay-at-home culture may be encouraged. That is, work from home culture may be encouraged. Next, labor subsidies. If the government gives subsidy to workers to look for work or to train, then the supply of labor will increase and the supply will shift to the above. Next, the actual and the potential labor supply. The actual labor supply, it includes what? Those workers who are both working and able to supply their labor, it including the unemployed. So, the potential labor supply also includes those who for one reason to another are currently inactive. So, these are all the introduction, and then what are the concepts of labor, who is an employer and the employee. and what are the problems, what are the suggestions to strengthen the labor economics or the concept of the labor economics. Thank you.